Good evening.
Mr. Decker, I'm just getting set up. How you doing today?
Great.
Good. You look like you got some rest.
I did. Even though vacation with a 4 and a 6-year-old isn't really a vacation, as my wife pointed out, but we did get a lot of rest and a lot of fun and a lot of just back to reality.
Yes. Well, reality is here.
Yes, sir.
So I don't really have any guests tonight. So it's just going to be us shooting the breeze.
Okay.
I'm trying to get a police officer who is also a preacher. He wrote a book. He's supposed to be coming on, but I wasn't able to reach him. So, but he will be here. He will be here one of these days. I just have to get him on.
Gotcha.
So I'm getting myself set up on YouTube and Facebook. So give me 1 second.
Take your time, man.
Okay.
You're muted.
A little more. Oh, that's good lighting there. Oh, that's good lighting.
That's because I got the touch.
You got the touch.
I got the magic touch.
You know, when you have cam lights up, it really makes it difficult when you got your lights from the screen that are close, and then you got the cans working in the background. It makes it very difficult to get the lighting correct. Mr. Decker, like I said, I was sharing with you a moment ago, and again, we are live on Facebook. I always try to tell people that because sometimes people come on here and they're not aware that we're recording not only here on Zoom, but it's also being streamed across YouTube and on Facebook. So I always warn people that, look, when you go on Tea and Conversation, that, you know, you may, somebody may hear it, okay? You are being recorded. It ain't, I say what I want to say. Somebody says, well, man, you must not be trying to get elected again. I don't say anything that I think wouldn't get me elected. I do know that some of the things that I say, some people may not necessarily align themselves with, but I'm not doing a Kanye, right? I'm not doing all that other stuff. I'm just Adam, and I don't plan on being anything else other than that. So, and then when you are genuine, you don't have to put on facades and stuff anyway. So I'm not really concerned about that at all. Jason, so you've been a little bit busy, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
Getting ready for the 24, getting ready for the 24, the year 24.
Trying.
But that's good. You got to put the work in. Listen, let me do my introduction and we're going to get back because like I said, we're just going to be shooting the breeze, just talking candidly. There are a lot of local races that are coming up. So I'd like to get some of those, and that's who we're going to be seeing over the next couple of weeks, because a lot of candidates are running for school board, they're running for village boards and so on and so forth. So those candidates, I look forward to sharing with our audience who those candidates are. So hopefully people get to know them. If you're just joining, welcome to Tea and Conversation. This is Trustee Adam Winston. I am also the host of Tea and Conversation. We are live both on Zoom. You can follow the link, or you can watch us on YouTube if you cannot participate, but you still can put messages in YouTube. All I ask you to do is, if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, because I'm trying to grow the channel. I should have been doing this all along, but in any event, we are just going to have candid conversation today because there are a lot of things going on. There are a lot of things that are going on that you have not heard, right? There are things that happen over, and I don't know what's the school district over in Dalton. Maybe you know, Mr. Decker, but I know that the board voted, and I don't understand how you do this, but the board voted to remove one of the school board members. I don't know if you saw this in the paper over the weekend, but the board voted to remove one of the members because and one of the longest serving members, for some odd reason. I don't understand school boards, Jason. And some of the school boards, I don't know how they operate. Who's manning the house? So we're going to have a discussion about that. Secondly is, I know that nobody probably has any inside knowledge of this, but the judge that was accused of domestic violence out of Markham, I can't think of his name offhand. Do you remember the gentleman's name, Jason? It was in the paper. He hit his wife with a bottle recently.
No, I mean, I know there's a few people with some issues regarding domestic violence going on, but
yeah. Well, I think his last name is Boyd. And
yeah.
The case, from what I understand, the charges have been dropped. Surprise! So that's very interesting too, because and listen, and I'm not. There's no shade on domestic violence. It's one of those very difficult things to prosecute, right? It's one of those very difficult things to prosecute because. Okay, because when you are dealing with matters of the heart, right? So you got a judicial system who's supposed to manage this person's feelings for this person and so on and so forth. So I get it. It's very difficult to manage matters of the heart. However, I think that at some point, and Trustee Matt, hopefully you chime in here. I know you had some, I know you probably have an opinion on this, but when does the state pick up the charges, right? In the event, so I look at it through the lens of this, okay? So Jason, me and you, we're lovers. and you kicked the crap out of me, right? But we've been together for 5 years, okay? So there's some attachment issues, right? Then I call the police, or the police are called because we have a domestic case. At what point does the state jump in, okay, and pick up the charges so that I don't, as a victim or as somebody who sometimes led blindly by my heart, Jason? Sometimes I'm led blindly by my heart. When does the state pick up those charges to protect those individuals who could possibly be victims? And especially when you have an incident like this, where one of the accuser is a judge. So those are the things that I'm more concerned with when you have matters of the heart. And I wish I could get somebody on. Hopefully they're listening out there in the stratosphere. Matters of the heart, domestic violence cases. When should they be picked up by the state? The other thing that we haven't talked about is. And you're gonna love this, Mr. Sawyer. I'm breaking up. Is it me breaking up, Jason? Am I breaking up, or can you hear me fine?
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
So, because you may have a break. You're saying I have a maybe your Wi-Fi. You gotta turn the wheels on your Wi-Fi, but
Adjust the tinfoil.
adjust the tinfoil. But then you also have Carrie Austin. Justin, I'm certain that you probably got 3 or 4 cents to say about that. But Carrie Austin, if you didn't know, I don't know if you've been following this. Carrie Austin says, "I'm too sick to testify." Right. So there are a lot of things to talk about this week. It's just us. We can just have as much candid conversation as we want because we have no guests. I think last week we had Jeff Coleman, right? This was the day before the election. Did you see, Justin, did you see the numbers? I know Jeffrey Coleman was, I'm glad he was on and he was very optimistic. What do you think about the outcome after seeing the numbers after the election last week? Do you think that Jeffrey, Mr. Coleman that was running for state rep, he was off?
Yeah, he was off by a lot.
He was off on every category.
So you see the results.
I do. I looked at his numbers, okay, and so I looked at his numbers, and I'm just talking about his race, okay. Forget about Darren Bailey, forget about all of the other candidates was there any surprise, Jason? Was there any surprises about last week's election?
Not really.
Not really. Now, there was an election. There was an election that did surprise me, Justin. The election that surprised me, it's not in my area, but I was watching it anyway. Michael Hastings seems to still win his seat. Now, that is totally, you know what? I'm so sick of people in the Rich Township area. But Michael Hastings, who defrauded the people by creating a letter and putting his sister's name on it, right? It's been all in the paper. He seemed to still manage to hold on to the seat. How does this happen, Jason?
Well, isn't he also under investigation for some domestic violence issues?
He's under investigation for domestic violence.
So I never, please, anybody listening, I never mean to disrespect anybody, but it's literally the fact that they have a choice of Democrat or Republican, and they just, as you said many months ago, they hold their nose and they vote Democrat.
Well, here's the thing. Jess. Listen, when I went to the poll,
I'm just saying that's it. That's it.
But there was a crap load of libertarians. So there was a crap load of for the first time ever. We had 3 candidates. We had 3 options on the ballot. So you didn't have to vote. You didn't have to vote for the Republican candidate. In fact, you could have voted for a libertarian in pretty much all of those races. We still, the libertarian races had very low number. What did Nico do? How did Nico do in the race?
22 points.
That ain't bad.
That ain't bad.
Not for a guy with $250.
But see, that was also a 2-way race, so I mean that helped him a lot because the Republican who tried getting on their slated list for countywide, if I remember correctly, that person actually voted in the Democratic primary as a Democrat. So that automatically disqualifies you from being slated on. That's how we were able to get him off. And luckily, Nico got that 22% because none of the other countywides got their 5 points. So Nico was the sole, reason why the Libertarians will be established through 2026 in anything within Cook County. And now that redistricting is over, if I understand it correctly, we are able to run state rep and state Senate districts completely within Cook County as an established party. I mean, anybody can run, but I mean, the Libertarians have ballot access within the borders of Cook County. So that's why when you say like the Hastings race, that was a 2-way race, Democrat, Republican. There's a lot of Libertarians on the ballot, but we didn't run anybody for state rep and we didn't run anybody for state Senate because the signature requirements are just as high as if you run independent. And anybody who knows anything about signature requirements knows that in independent, you got about 12 to 15 times the amount of signatures and half the amount of time to get them in. So that just shows you the system is designed to keep the average person out of the marketplace of ideas and in the decision making. That's why Libertarians are like that hope of independence, where you don't have to be Republican or Democrat. You can be down the middle. We're a varying spectrum on different platforms and ideas. So, hopefully we can make some noise in 2024 and 2026, because I, for one, am extremely disappointed in our results.
Yeah. Well. Listen. So I don't know, and I'm gonna keep this for a minute right here. But where do the libertarians go from here? I mean, is there a pathway? Is there a pathway for any libertarian? And why do you think that the numbers for libertarians are often very low? And this is not. I mean, like I said, I've seen more libertarians on the ballot for this particular race than I have in more recent races. But what is it that causes the libertarians not to necessarily be considered viable options or alternatives to the Republicans or the Democrats?
Honestly, I'd say it starts right off the bat with the suppression of, as I just made a post earlier today about, from day one, there was no signature numbers in the candidates guide for libertarians, even though we were established. We had to go through many phone calls and emails for them to even give us the numbers on what signature requirements were needed. Then they tried telling us that the commissioner candidates didn't count for the established status, that we had to get the 6,900 signatures to get on the ballot if we wanted to. We had to sue the Cook County clerk, which we lost in court, but then we won on an appeal. So that cost us a lot of money and a lot of time just fighting for what the law says. The law says we are established, but yet we still had to jump through all these hoops. And now, even to this day, I am the Bremen Township Libertarian Committee person, but you won't find me on any Cook County clerk's website. So when you ask why we don't get the traction or why we don't get the attention, it starts with the powers that be, preach fairness and openness and transparency, but yet you ignore the fact that there is a third party. You ignore that there are these other viable candidates who are, I can't say it enough. We are the people. I mean, we are all working class, blue collar, 40-hour a week, people, not sitting on a pile of money. We're not sitting on these big, networks of people that can, election day was crazy. The front lines, that was wild. That was wild. But so when you jump right in and we don't even get the fair shake that we're deserved, and then on top of that, you add the media ignores us. WTTW, who's partially publicly funded, denied us access to any of the debates they held, whether it was within Cook County or on a state level. If it was a two-way race, they just didn't have a debate for that race. But they had all kinds of forums and other things that, any candidate was allowed their 2 minutes. You got to write a speech and they did a 2-minute video with you, and you got, as many takes as you wanted until you were happy. But so then people are left to try to figure out and make sense. And that's, as many people will tell me that, oh, I don't vote the party, I vote the candidate. I don't vote the party, I vote the candidate. But a lot of people don't have the time. It's not that they're lazy. It's not that they don't want to do the homework. They just don't have the time to look into it. And they're left with the stigma that both the Republicans and Democrats try to paint us as. Republicans paint us as Democrats who don't like taxes, and Democrats like to point us out as Republican light. And what it comes down to on election day, when you have very hot button issues like abortion or like the Workers' Rights Amendment, people don't care. They vote straight down the line, and they vote to keep the other person from winning, because they think that if I give a libertarian my vote, I'm a Democratic voter, but if I vote for a libertarian, then that means a Republican might win. And if I'm a Republican voter,
right, they feel like they're wasting their vote, and that could possibly be it. Trustee Max, you're out there. Were there any surprises? In your opinion about this particular race that came up? One of the things that I noticed when it came to retention of some of these judges, so hopefully, Trustee Max, you can hear me, but the retention of some of these judges, I noticed that Timothy Evans, he looked like his numbers were a little bit off. So I did pay attention. I don't know if anybody looked at those judges, but were there any surprises other than other than, I thought some of the numbers were kind of low. Okay, I did. I thought some of the numbers that came out were fairly low. What about the union pledge, the home with Flossmore thing? Any of these, any surprises, Trustee Matz? Trustee Matz, are you there?
Yes, to be truthful, I was only interested in one race and one race only.
Okay, so
Yeah.
nothing else surprised you through the race. Justin, what about you? So Jeffrey Coleman, when he was on here, I thought he was a good sport. I mean, he sounded good enough and he sounded convincing. His numbers were extremely low. Did you see his numbers? I think he had compared to the Democratic candidate.
He had, it was like 30,000 to 2,000.
Yeah, he had like 2,000 votes. Like,
he didn't. But I don't know. That was my first time hearing about him, and I'm out here in Calumet City every day, and in my ward as well. And I ain't know him until he came on your show. So
right,
he need to make a little bit more noise next time.
And maybe that's the key, that as opposed to waiting to the last minute, some of these candidates honestly need to get out earlier. Jason, you got to get out much earlier.
Jeffrey Coleman was one of the ones that the Cook County Republicans, Sean Morrison and his merry men of Republicans, slated their largest. I mean, they put countywide, they got 4 out of 5. They put up, I don't know how many of the 17 county commissioners. They put state rep and state senate, and that was after the primaries. They slated them in, and I think I met Jeffrey out at the Gardens. I think it was a week or two after the primaries, and he did. He seemed like a great guy, and he was talking about making some moves and making some noise. But yeah, I was shocked at his numbers, and I mean, I did better than him as a third party, and he had the Republican Party behind him, So I was shocked. I was, especially against somebody who's under a federal investigation for, isn't he? Let me correct myself. Isn't Thaddeus Jones under investigation for fraud and something else?
I've heard of so many different things. I don't know what's all going on with Thaddeus, but I do know that being under investigation didn't mean stuff. And you know what I really want to say?
That's right.
In this particular race, it looked like rather you're a wife beater, rather you were retained, rather you are domestic violence beater. It didn't matter in this particular race. It just seemed like a lot of people just went. This was one of those races where it just seemed like if I'm a Democrat, I'm just voting for the Democrat. If I'm a Republican, I'm just voting for the Republican. The problem, I think, with libertarians, in my humble opinion, is you guys got to get a coalition, and you got to get that coalition way before an election time in hopes to try to, get some traction on some of these issues. What about Carrie Austin? Justin, did you see the article about Carrie Austin?
Yeah, I seen the article.
Okay, what did you think about that?
I really don't have no comment on it. She can't fit trial. I mean, I don't know.
So what do we do? We just don't try her. We just let her go.
She can't go to jail. I don't know. So I guess let's just say she can't fit trial. I don't know. But she could vote on things. But I don't know.
Yeah. So that's interesting because you're right. She can vote on things, but you can't. You can vote on things. You can make it to the place to vote, but you can't get to. You can't sit trial. So that's very interesting. What about the case over? What about the person over in Dalton? It looks like they're trying to remove, or they remove one of the longest serving school board members over in Dalton. Have you heard this, Jason or Justin? Anybody heard this?
No, I didn't hear that one.
So
no.
So it looks like there was a vote to remove this individual. Very interesting because it almost seems like, and I don't know the rules. If you are you're just able to remove a candidate from remove a sitting person from the board if you just don't like them? You know,
I think I'm pretty sure the board has that authority, but then it all comes down to the board. You know, I mean, every
well,
board.
but the board. Listen, how do you prevent a board that just doesn't that does not like you know, how do you prevent, like, I don't like you, you know, how do you prevent you know, this from being, you know, just a coup, right? I don't like you.
Well,
You
I
know?
mean, look at the village board in Dalton. They tried getting rid of the mayor, and they went through all the right channels, and you know, I mean, they couldn't even get rid of her. But I don't understand how they can get rid of a board. To me, I'd have to look into it. I don't know how it works. I just know that, as you said earlier, every school board operates different. Sometimes the school board president runs the meeting. Sometimes the superintendent runs the meeting. Some of them, I know some of the school districts still don't even have in person. They're still doing Zoom. And it's like, it's almost
Right.
2023. Come on. You know, like the city of Harvey, you can't even go and speak during public comment. So,
Well, and, you know, that's very interesting. Any have you heard of anybody who's come out just seeking to be the mayor over in Harvey?
yeah, it's McCaskill, the second ward alderman, Marshawn Tolbert, and of course, Mayor Clark's running again. So I
Just
think,
those three.
as far as I know, I mean, as I said, I mean, I was pretty focused on my own campaign, and then the day after the election, we just spent 4 days in Wisconsin Dells, so I wasn't really paying attention to much, you know. But they will have a primary. You know, Harvey's one of the municipalities that has a primary in February, so we'll see. But ultimately, if it's a three-way race, I look at Marshawn splitting the vote and Clark winning again. I mean, that's the way I see it. Nobody's going to beat the mayor of Harvey in a three-way race. I mean, he has his followers, he has his seniors, and he definitely has the foot soldiers to go out there and win an election. I mean, that's what it takes. That's what I learned on election day.
Well, you know what? So and how was the reception out on the election? So Jason, can you play a little game with me, okay? And you know I like to play the game.
I like games.
But listen,
sometimes.
So Jason, here you are. You're in front of the polls. You're a libertarian, okay? And the deck is stacked against you. You're a libertarian. Then you're a white guy. I mean, it's nothing. I mean, you are what you are, okay? And so how was it? How was it working the polls with those two things? I mean, what did the candidates say? What was your reception?
Well, other than I ran into Hastings the Sunday before election. I ran into Debbie Myers Martin twice, and I ran into Donna Miller once. But other than that, I never saw another candidate out there. I didn't see a single person working for Republicans. And I mean, it was literally, I mean, on early voting, you know, it was usually 1 to 3 people at each polling place for the early voting. And then on election day, I mean, they had armies out there, man. And I mean, now, you know, being on the front lines, I had heard stories. I had heard many stories and seen pictures and videos, but being on the front lines, bouncing around 31 different precincts, that's how the Democrats are able to just dominate. I mean, they have anywhere from 3 to, I mean, the one church I was at in Country Club Hills, there must have been 10 people out there, you know. Yeah. But what was flattering is that there was quite a few people just handing out the palm card for the straight Democratic ticket. But I saw quite a few volunteers or paid workers out there specifically for Monica, for my opponent. So to have that sort of influence where they needed somebody out there specifically with her little oversized business card, you know, and the amount of times I was interrupted or yelled at, or, you know, just two guys getting closer and closer till I had to take a step to the side, and then they take another step. So I take another step, and then I finally just said, all right.
So you feel like they tried to bully you?
I wouldn't go that far. It's politics, man. I get it. I didn't take anything personally.
But you know what? But listen.
I actually here real quick. I actually met a lot of very cool people. I met a lot of cool people that strictly said, I'm out here to get paid. I'm doing what I'm supposed to get paid. I need this money, and this is what I'm doing. And depending on how long I stayed, you know, I followed the traffic. You know, if I went to a polling place at early voting, there was 5 or 6 people over the course of 20 minutes. I left. I went to the next one. You know, but I mean, most of them were cool. I mean, I found it. I can't think of a better word than insecure. When I'm sitting there talking to you, 2 feet from each other, we're standing there talking, and I'm giving you my elevator speech, and here's dude 15 feet away starts screaming and yelling at the person that I'm talking to, and it's like, it just can you have a little respect? And what is one voter? I'm sitting there, you guys are like the 98 Bulls, and I'm like a high school basketball team, and you still have to try to, just act stupid. I mean,
Well, and that's just how it goes. I know,
and that's what they're paid to do. That's what they're paid to do.
Well, it's not just them. I know when I was running for Bloom Township committee person out in front of Prairie State, I experienced some of the same kind of aggression, and then the whole conversation was spun that I was the aggressor. So it's like, so wait a minute, I can't hold my own right against you, otherwise I became labeled the aggressor. I was looking at an article. I was looking at an article. It says Cook County judges receive less than 70% of the votes in their retention. Okay, this includes Timothy Evans, Charles Patrick Burns, William H. Hooks, Gary Crowes, Ann Finley Collins. So most of the judges, and there were quite a few. Okay, and I don't know if I'm shocked by this, right? But most of the judges received less than 70% to be retained. Now, all of them were retained, and I don't even know if somebody knows what it means, please do share. Because how many yes votes do you need, right? How many yes votes do you need, or no votes do you need not to be accepted? Does anybody know this answer? If you know that answer, please share. Because if the answer is yes or no, how many no's do you need to not be retained? Does every vote have to be a no?
Well, I do know that a non-vote is a yes vote, and that was very clearly stated by quite a few people outside. We all learn in school. Most of us learn in school, when you do a true or false question, if it's an absolute, it's usually false.
Right.
And I had this conversation with quite a few of these volunteers and workers out there who are preaching, I'll vote all of them, yes on all, yes on all. Yeah. You can't logically tell me that all 61 of them deserve to stay on.
Well, so what you're essentially saying is that, because I know that a ton of people probably just did not vote on those, didn't vote on the judges. And you're saying because they didn't vote on them, that's probably why they only got 70%, right? Because if those people had voted just no, but even if one person voted yes, right? Like, what is the number? Like, what is the number to retain judges? And I'm asking this question because I really literally don't know. What is the threshold? Trustee Matz, do you know?
Are you talking about the number to retain the?
Yeah, like what is the number? Like, because the vote is yes or no. What is the threshold for a judge to be retained?
They have to have above 60% of the votes.
There you
go. Okay.
Above 60. So I don't know if you look in the chat I sent you, Adam.
Yeah.
You look at the chat, spells it out. And you had several judges that barely squeaked in with 60%. You had some judges that had 80%, some had 70%, but those are the judges that barely squeaked in with 60% of the vote.
Wow. So you know what, that would be interesting. That would be something interesting we should have talked about prior to the election. How many people know that, Trustee Matz, right? Where, hey, listen, you have to vote one way or another, right? First thing, for starters. And then secondly, I wasn't, now see, when I asked this loaded question, was there any surprises? I'm going to be honest, I was not surprised by Timothy Evans only getting barely squeaking in. And he's one of the people that I was really thinking about. I wasn't surprised that he barely squeaked in, because I understand that there was an active campaigning against him. I don't know why. I don't know why or what's the beef. when you
The
see
beef is letting the criminals out of jail. They had a beef with him and connected him with Kim Fox. They said those are the two people are the reason why people are getting out of jail. And so it was an active campaign up north to unthrone him. I mean, he was just reelected as Chief Justice, but he has to have that seat in order to keep that title.
So does he have? But this is probably going to be his last run.
What? Why do you say that?
How old is he? Any old as baseball?
Yeah, 102. So what?
How old is Chuck Grassley? And he just got reelected at 89 in Iowa.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But I would think that Tim Evans is like a million years old. I mean, I'm not going to say he's a million, but I know that if you count the rings, he's pretty much up there.
But he's not in the courtroom. He's not in the courtroom. He's not in the courtroom.
He's just responsible for a lot of. He's responsible for a lot of the actions that happen. So that has to be stressful for a guy already 80-something years old.
I don't think. No, I don't think so. I don't think that's the stress. I mean, he's got a lot of handlers around him. You know, a lot of people that's helping him. So it's not like he's doing the minutia, the day-to-day nothing.
I don't know.
Yeah. What about so did you hear about Judge Boyd, the case being dismissed? What's your thoughts of that? Because do you feel like it should have been a little bit more public scrutiny of this, or does it just fade into the sunset and everybody goes their respective ways? Do you think that this was handled properly?
Who are you asking that?
I'm just asking you or anyone out there in the stratosphere.
I love
Do you think that it could have been handled a little bit differently? I mean, or should have been handled differently? I'm not going to ask could it. Do you think that this restores the public's perception or faith in the system when a judge who's accused of domestic violence, that case is dismissed so quickly?
Apparently, we don't know the backstory. Apparently, there's a backstory.
We don't know the backstory about a lot of domestic cases.
Yeah, we don't. That's all I can say.
Okay. Well, you know what?
Yeah, I even got a comment for that one.
Justin, go ahead. What are you thinking, Justin?
No comment.
Oh my God. You know what? And you know what? And that could be the issue, right? Nobody wants to speak. So the next thing you know,
it's not a great start. I mean, I don't want to go any further than, right, that you don't want to trample on someone's reputation without evidence, but it doesn't begin the conversation in a great way, to have a story like that.
But that's my I guess my caution would be like, if this type of case, I think that you kind of have to be a little bit more transparent. And absolutely. I just don't sense that. That's my only issue. I think everybody deserves a due process. And I understand if I were him and this happened, I would want it to go away quickly too. But when you're kind of a public figure, it just, to me, something smells a little bit rotten under the counter. I don't know, but I'll leave that alone. And I guess this may be part.
You muted yourself.
Oh,
Adam, you muted yourself.
He was on a roll there too.
I know.
Mr. Winston, we lost you for a moment there.
Okay, I don't know how I did that, but Tim Evans is 79. But what I was saying is, I won't belabor the point. I guess if I were being accused of something like that, I would want it to quickly go away as well. My hope, however, is that the public's perception would be considered when you have cases like this. I just think that you have to do your due diligence and you have to make certain that the public. I don't even know if the public is even aware that the case has been dismissed. I think it was just so. The last thing I heard was supposed to be in Will County. Will County kicked the can down the road for some odd reasons, and now it's just faded into the abyss. In any event, if you're just joining, welcome to Tea and Conversation. This is Trustee Adam Winston. Listen, I ain't gonna poke the bear, right? Because I don't want the bear to come back for me. I mean, maybe messing with one of the cubs, but we are here at Tea and Conversation. We do this every Monday, and we just talk politics and things that are happening in our respective communities. If you are a candidate, I'm putting it out there, just like some of my colleagues, I'm putting it out there. You're welcome to come on Tea and Conversation to let people know who you are. Please come on one Monday, every Monday at 7 o'clock. You can come on here, introduce yourself, and let us know what office you're running for and why you should be elected. So make certain that you share this if you know someone who's running for office. No, I'm in Glenwood, so I'm not going to run against you. But I do think that these towns are smaller than you even know. So somebody right here may hear somebody out there, and so on and so forth. So please, you know, candidates that are running, please let them know that I'd love to hear from them. If you haven't joined or subscribed to the YouTube page, please do so, guys. I need those subscribers in order for us to continue to grow and make certain that our audience grows. I want to go over here just for 1 minute, because I do think that one of the particular races that I found very interesting, and hopefully not everybody is as tight-lipped as you were on this judge, but was it not interesting that Michael Hastings actually looks like he won that race? Is there a runoff? The numbers were very, very close. How does this happen? I guess I'm just curious to know, how does a person who's kind of out front, you see that he's kind of baited certain situations, yet he still was able to kind of penetrate his base and get support where he barely made that 50% threshold, but he made it, and it looks like he was actually in the lead by a couple of votes. How does that happen? How does that happen, Jason?
He's a Democrat.
So that's the blame. Everything is that the guy's a Democrat.
No, but I mean, I don't want to call it blind voting. I mean, people are loyal to voting one way or the other. And when you have somebody like that, or Thaddeus Jones, or anybody else that has, you know, tarnishment on their name, I mean, anybody can be criticized for their choices, but I mean, when there's those serious accusations out there, like domestic violence or a verbal abuse, whatever was going on with his divorce, you know, and whatnot, and you still pull off a win, you know, I don't know what else to say. I mean, if you're asking how did he win, that's my answer. I mean,
I guess I'm more concerned with. I'm more concerned with why and how does this happen, and like what is the mindset of the voter? And maybe that's one of these shows that we need to dedicate, right? Maybe we need to dedicate one of these shows where we just kind of dive into the mind of the average voter, right? Because I'm trying to say, if the process is what we say, that everybody has an opportunity to run, and this speaks directly to the Libertarian Party and everything, anyone, right? If the process is fair, yet we see some inconsistencies, right? And the process is supposed to vet itself. That's the theory, right? Where when these particular things, your community will vet you, blah, 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 blah. At what point do we challenge the notion that people are paying attention?
Well, first of all, the process is not fair, because I just explained the hoops that we had to go through as libertarians to get on the ballot, which was due. I mean, that's what we earned, that's what we deserved. And that was for Brian Dennehy getting over 5% back in 2020 to establish the Libertarian Party within Cook County. And that's the way the law is written. Yet we had to go to court and pay lawyers a lot of money, and then pay lawyers more money to go to the appeals court before we were given what was due to us. You know what I mean? Right. So right off the bat, when you said, you know, the process is fair, no, it's not. They like to preach that it's fair. They like to talk about it all day long about how it's fair and open, and you know, we need fresh new blood in the marketplace of ideas. But I mean, I could dedicate a whole show on the suppression and the you know, keeping us in the dark and putting us in a corner, and then I mean, the Republicans came in, tried slating the whole countywide slate. They weren't even petitioning when we were. I mean, we had one-on-one races across the board on the Cook County level. And Sean Morrison's reasoning for not petitioning during normal petitioning time is because they're shorthanded. Now, I witnessed that firsthand at the polls on election day and all early voting. As I said, I didn't see one single Republican out there, at least the precincts I went to.
Right.
It just comes down to picking the lesser of two evils. I mean, again, I'm not trying to disrespect or insult any voters, but when it comes down to it, people would rather vote for a bad Democrat than a not so bad Republican. Simply because of values like abortion or LGBTQ rights, or the Republicans' lack of being in touch with reality or having sensitive understanding of Black and brown communities. I mean, we could talk about it all day, but that's the simple answer is when you have the Democratic label by your name in Illinois and Cook County, chances are you're going to get votes no matter what.
Well, and that same argument, like I said, I think I shared with you or shared with Jeff last week, can be made in Florida, right? In Florida, it doesn't matter if you got Republican by your name; they kind of have a stronghold in that particular area.
Exactly.
So it depends on where you are. Cook County, Chicago, Illinois is a Democratic state. Florida is a Republican state. So if you're a Democrat, you are on the outs. Now, my thoughts are this, Adam, Mr. Adam, you're on here on the line. What happens and what could happen? And I'm just doing hypotheticals. What if you did like Bob Fiorini, right? You join one of these particular parties just to get in and then jump parties. Could you do that to get more traction for the Libertarian?
The short answer is that individual candidates could do that, but then that only works as long as it works, if it works, right? You could get dissolved or sort of absorbed into the larger party that you've joined. And then if you don't attract a lot of attention from the voters, that's it. You paid your ticket, you took the ride, and then the ride's over.
Right.
So Ron Paul is the example who had sort of been first come to his congressional seat in the 70s as a Republican. And he did it sort of the other way. He visited the Libertarian Party for the presidential cycle in 1988 and then left and went back to the Republican Party. And then almost 20 years later ran for president again in 2008 and got a lot more national attention that way. And his son Rand Paul, to some extent, serving as a senator there. But we've seen over time, especially with Senator Paul, the phrase I use is that he has sort of been reduced to being one of Trump's backup singers, basically. Whatever used to make him more distinctive became a lot less distinctive the longer he was in the Trump chorus. And I think, what you guys are describing, you wouldn't even have to go to Florida. You might just have to go south of the Kankakee County line to see a little bit more of that. And maybe you'd see a divide in parts of Will County more. But the smaller the towns are, the further out you are. I live on the north side, and I see a different local view. Well, I think part of that is the identity politics that kind of both of the major parties have settled into, and I don't just mean to use that as a scare word, but a sort of, small towns versus the major cities. Mm-hmm. Some of it is very racially charged. Not all. I mean, I know that I live up in the, parts of the north side close to the lake where it's not necessarily that these are, many of them white left liberal voters or white progressive voters. And I can say I didn't see any Republican poll workers, or I shouldn't say poll workers, but campaigners in those neighborhoods. And I didn't see a lot of Democratic campaigners either, because they know it's safe territory. What I saw were people petitioning for city races coming up, the aldermanic and mayoral races coming up in February in Chicago. I think the two-party system, this is another one of my things I probably say to a lot of people a lot of different times. If it's a two-party system nationwide, really, if you go locality by locality, it's as often as not a one-party system. You're living in a kind of one-party major city, or maybe to some extent, one-party environment in a lot of the Southland, down by you guys. And if you went to the smaller towns, in downstate Illinois, it'd be kind of the other way around, a sort of one-party Republican system without a lot of wiggle room. So it's not even, like a highly competitive two-party system in every county with 100,000 people or 200,000 people in it. You might only see some of that in the suburbs, and even there, that's probably changing. And I think it's disappointing. And a lot of that is the thresholds to participation. I think some of it is safe districts and gerrymandering. Some of this was before my time, but when they went from multiple member districts for the state assembly down to single member districts back 40 years ago, 41, 42 years ago, when they changed the Constitution again, then there was no longer any incentive to have any range of opinion. All you got to do is win the primary, and then you go to Springfield if it's a safe district, or go to Congress if it's a safe district. So there's a lot of wreckage to sift through there. And I had a bunch of ideas about some other stuff folks were saying earlier, but I don't want to derail us from whatever else you want to ask.
Well, listen, I also noticed on the ballot that there were a number of candidates, and I don't know, Justin or Jason or Trustee Matz, who won the MWRD? Do we know who won water reclamation? Because I saw candidates also from the Green Party that were running in those particular races. Who were the three people that were? I mean, I know that there were several sections of the MWRD board that were running, but do we know the winners of those races?
Yeah, the incumbent got back in. Speranopolis. I can't think of her name.
Yes, Spiropoulos.
And then Teresa Flynn, she was the second biggest vote getter, and then Yamika Brown was the third.
So pretty much people went there and they pretty much voted for the Democrat. And water reclamation. I guess I'm completely perplexed on why you would need to put Democrat or Republican or anything by the water reclamation. It's really a non-legislative seat. But it seems like all of the Democrats won for the water reclamation as well.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And I believe they usually do. If there's any jobs associated with that, where the winning office holder can apportion a certain amount of jobs or patronage, that may be part of the incentive for keeping it on the ballot. The same way that judicial races these are not household discussions about 60, 70 judges that people are usually having. It's a weird thing to have them tied to the local Democratic or Republican ticket, but here we are.
Yeah. And should we do away with some of that? Like, my thoughts are, first thing, I've always been very interested in the fact that the clerk's office, let's just start there. The clerk's office should be nonpartisan. Like, the clerk's office kind of handles all of the, whether you're Republican, Libertarian, Green, Republican, they handle everyone's ballot access. So why wouldn't we do the clerk's office as a nonpartisan as opposed to taking the title? It just feels wrong to label it Democratic, just like it does when you label MWRD or the school board. Like, we made those nonpartisan races, but we still don't do that for the clerk's office, which could probably alleviate a lot of the headaches and the nightmares, right? But in any event, should we relook at how we label some of these offices in terms of partisan and nonpartisan?
Well, I mean, judges, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer to me. I mean,
yeah, judges. I mean, why do they need to be Democratic or Republican? Right.
I mean, I still, to this day, in all my years of living and asking, there's never a legitimate logical answer to that. It's just, I mean, it's one of those things. It is what it is, and the powers that be like it that way, obviously. So it just stays the same. I mean, it takes people that aren't just average citizens like us. I mean, Adam and Trustee Matt, you guys are trustees, but unless you're sitting in, as I keep saying, the marketplace of ideas and involved in the decision making, nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to have those conversations, and it just makes too much sense for them to go about changing it.
Yeah.
And I know one of our other candidates who's running, he had run for Cook County Assessor, Nico Tsatsulis, was lucky to have one debate with Fritz Kagi back in the spring, and it sort of took Kagi off guard to have him there. But Fritz Kagi was talking about the corruption in the real estate developing business, the property tax appeal law firms, and how he hoped as a reforming Democrat to sort of be, pointing a better way than that compared to the days of Joe Barrios and Michael Madigan. But Nico, coming from our, outsider libertarian third party perspective, said, if I can try to do his voice, Fritz, he's a man from Athens. Fritz, it's amazing to me you would talk about corruption when to be slated, the judges have to raise $40,000 to even be slated by the Democratic Party in Cook County. I'm not doing the voice quite right, but for the lowest office, you have to buy in. And I met a nice woman at one of Jason Decker here, our friend Jason's events down south. I didn't get to make it to too many too often, but one woman who was running for judge as a Democrat who was not slated, and she very knowingly nodded her head when I told her that story. Like, yeah, if you don't buy in, you don't get nominated. So there you go. Or you don't get nominated by the brass.
Right. And you know what? The judges, they do. And there have been some judges that have not been slated that have found success doing it on their own. And that's no doubt an argument, and that whole process, in my humble opinion, needs to be re-evaluated or re-looked at. But I don't know how you change. I don't know how you change any of that if we can't even see why it's important not to label some of these particular seats as nonpartisan, which probably would do away with a lot of the headaches, if we just labeled them differently. That's my humble opinion. But if you're just joining, welcome to Tea and Conversation. This is with Trustee Adam Winston. Listen, we have turkey and toys coming on. So every year I do, I give out turkeys, and during the Christmas holiday, I also give out toys. I welcome them, guys. Listen, I normally fund these particular projects, but it would be nice to have some help. On the 3 days before Christmas, I normally stand on the corner. I'm dressed up as Santa Claus, and your young one can come and take a picture with me, where they can also get toys. So that's where the toys come in. And then we give out turkeys to help to those in need on Thanksgiving. So, and it's not a photo shoot. I don't do it as a photo shoot. I don't give out a turkey and say, hey, take a picture with me. I gave them this turkey. I don't do that. I just want to make certain that everybody has a safe and happy holiday. It would be, if you want to donate, get in touch with me. You can inbox me and let me know that you want to participate in our turkey and toy drive that's going on right now. So I could use the help. If you haven't subscribed, join the YouTube page. Subscribe to it. That way you at least keep up with me once a week. I mean, it's only once a week, guys, and only for an hour. This is news you can use. So this is good stuff. When you join us here on Tea and Conversation, I know I feel smarter every time I have these shows, and you will too. So make certain that you join us. We will be having Cops in Crisis. I'm looking for the gentleman's book, which is here somewhere. But Cops in Crisis, this book was written by a police officer who's now a minister, who's going to be coming on the show, and he is going to be talking about his book. And he's going to be talking about how he's overcome some of the obstacles as being a police officer and now working as a minister to help those people that are struggling with whatever their demons or depression or whatever you may want to call it, he's going to be right here and he's going to be talking about that. If you're a candidate, again, I want to say this, please come on TN Conversation. Yes, if you can't handle our audience, you probably shouldn't be running, because what all we doing around is sit around, we talk, we kind of poke the bear. And Jason, you know, when you first came on the show, you were green. We ungreened you. Now you're part of this whole little program. But once you get acclimated, it's easy peasy, and it'll make you better as a candidate when you run in for office. Has anyone seen, and I don't know if you remember one of our guests over the past few months, but one of the young ladies, she was running for sheriff, Latanya Ruffin. I think she was running for sheriff, and now she's suing. She's suing. I don't know who she's suing. Does anybody know who she's suing?
I believe she's suing Tom Dart.
Oh, she's suing Tom Dart directly.
I believe. I don't quote me on that. I believe. I actually ran into her. She came and voted at a school in Country Club Hills.
Okay.
And man, she got a nice truck. I mean, she pulled right next to mine, and I jokingly said, "You want to trade? Mine's got more character." And she just kind of laughed. But you know, we talked for a minute. We had met at the Brian and Brutus debates over at the library at 95th and Halstead, and we've had a few conversations through Facebook Messenger. And as much as the Libertarians had a candidate, I was really hoping she was going to knock Dart off in the primary, but it just, I mean, it's tough. I mean, them incumbents, you can't beat them. I mean, that's the whole thing. I've had people ask me, why don't you run Democrat next time? I've had Republicans ask me to run Republican next time. I just politely say, no, thank you. Because I got the same chance of winning, you know? I mean, you're not going to beat an incumbent. You're not going to beat an incumbent Democrat as another Democrat.
So she's suing Tom Dart. So you say you believe she's suing Tom Dart.
I believe she's suing Tom Dart or the powers that be for the way that she was taken off the ballot.
Okay, what's your thoughts on that?
It's politics as usual in Cook County, I guess. I mean,
does it work? I mean, do you think she has it? I mean, and again, I know we're not lawyers. Adam, are you a lawyer? You got LP by your name. You practice law. Does she have a chance?
No, that's Libertarian Party of Chicago.
Oh, I thought that was legal jargon.
No.
Okay, but
sorry to disappoint.
Does she have a chance? Does she have an opportunity? Where does this case go? I guess I'm just wondering. Like, I know that we're caught in our emotions sometimes during these races. She was challenged for what have you. Now she's still suing. Where does this go? Does it just become noise or noise that we know everybody? In every election, we go through the same thing, right? Somebody's challenged. Somebody feels like it was unfair. I've been challenged. I felt like it was unfair. Is it a point of do you just pick up where you are and just keep going?
I don't know all the details of the reasoning, but according to her, and I mean, obviously everybody could have a reason to lie, but I don't understand why she would put in all that work and all that effort and stand by the fact that according to her, all her papers are legit. I mean, all her signatures were verified, everything went through, but because she was challenged for whatever reason, and then I believe, no, I don't want to say. I thought when she was first challenged, she won the challenge, but then they came back and like in some sort of like reverse appeal, her name was still on the ballot, but none of the votes for her counted, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Because I remember getting that card, and I actually texted her right away when I was done voting during the primary, and I sent her a picture of the card that said it was her and somebody else. Any votes for these candidates will not be counted. You know, and they handed that to you right away. Even if like I pulled a Libertarian ticket, obviously, but anybody who came in to vote during the primary was given that little card, and I sent her a picture of it because I voted the first day of early voting for the primary, and she's like, "What is this?" And I said, "I don't know. They handed it to me at the polls." You know, I mean, I don't know. I was shocked. I felt bad because like I said, I got to meet her. She seems like good people. She seems honest. She seemed very sincere. She obviously has a lot of experience working at the Cook County Jail. And, you know, that's the kind of people I believe we need. I don't want somebody in a suit I want somebody who worked their way up and works in the trenches, like Brad. As much as Brad is you got to take him with a grain of salt. I mean, he's been in that profession for a very long time and knows the office very well, and so did she, and she spoke very well. She knew her stuff. And I feel at the Brian and Brutus debates, I think she won everybody over just by her logic and common sense. That's what people want, logic and common sense.
So it looks like she is suing. It looks like she is suing the Board of Elections. She's suing the clerk's office. She's suing the Cook County Board of Election, and she's also named Kim Fox in her lawsuit along with Tom Dart. So she is bringing the big gun. So I would love to have her. Well, she probably can't come on here because she has this lawsuit going on. But that's going to be interesting to see where this goes. One of the things that all of these elections, every time there's always a candidate, unfortunately, that's challenged, that we feel like, okay, we shouldn't be challenged, or they shouldn't be challenged, and they end up getting challenged. So it'd be interesting to find out any updates with those. So well, it is now 8 o'clock, guys. This has been good. Anytime we can sit down and have a casual conversation without our meetings being so structured. Again, thank you for joining TN Conversation. I will be here next week. Again, the holidays are coming. Turkey and toys. Don't forget our toy drive, our turkey and toy drive, which is coming up. The turkeys we need, so we need to get that completed because people need that turkey. They got to defrost really, really soon. So I'm looking forward to that turkey and toy drive. So I'm looking forward to your support. So until next Monday, I will talk to you later. Flat property tax. I do the flat property tax every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. So if you are looking for something to do on Friday, or you want to learn about ways that you can get the property taxes lower, Nico should be on here, Jason. So you should tell him to come. You should join me on Wednesday for the flat property tax. I'd love to have his inquisitive nature about how we can get the property taxes lowered in the state of Illinois. So I'd love for him to join him because I love his insight. I think that working along with Attorney Reed and Trustee Matz, I think that we have some talking points that I don't mind him testing the metal. So make sure he comes on there to talk about the flat property tax along with us. It's a flat property tax, not a flat state sales tax. It's property tax to get these property taxes to something that we can all handle. The first, the installment should be coming up. Anybody heard anything about the installment of the taxes? Anything? Anybody heard? Adam?
I knew that they were saving it for after Election Day, so it promises to not be good. It promises to be bad.
Listen, was that a surprise? Don't tell me that was a surprise. We knew that they were actually going to be saving those property taxes until after the election. So hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles. That's why we go to the polls, and hopefully we'll start going to the polls with intention. We'll be talking about those late property tax bills or installment bills too at this property tax session on Wednesday. So until next Monday, guys, have a good night.
Thank you, Adam. You too.
Alrighty.
Everybody have a good night.